Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to today's broadcast of the Tuesday, April the 7th edition of the Cape Cod Times. This is Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader, coming to you today, as always, from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger here in cloudy, drizzly, and cold Mashpee, Massachusetts. Shocker, huh? Well, that's all we've been used to. Actually, we had a stranger in our midst yesterday, a Mr. Sun. Can you believe that? Mr. Sun showed up for a few moments during the day yesterday, and what a pleasure it was to feel the warmth and the glow of Mr. Sun. I hope he returns soon, and according to our forecast, he is going to do just that. So let's take a look at today's weather and see what we have in store for us throughout the rest of this week. We're beginning today with very cool, cloudy, gray, dull, dreary, somewhat depressing skies and weather here in the Cape Cod area. It was 40 degrees this morning when I came into the studios around 8:30 with some slight drizzle. So today's outlook has a high for the Cape and South Shore of 47 degrees. Not the greatest for this time of year, but at least we're not getting snow as parts of north and western Massachusetts may get today. So we're going to be cloudy with a brief shower or two during the day, so it's going to be kind of funky. Tonight it's going to clear. It's going to become partly cloudy and even colder with an overnight low of 26 degrees, if you can believe that, with a full moon. Now, Mr. Sun returns tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Isn't that good news, folks? Anyhow, highs tomorrow in our area will be 40 degrees and an overnight low of 30 with bright sunshine. Thursday, 46 degrees, coming up a little bit in temperature, mostly sunny and clear with an overnight low of 42. Friday, we get into the 50s for Friday and Saturday, mid-50s at 55 degrees on Friday, a mostly sunny day with an overnight low of 45 degrees. And Saturday, Mr. Sun is in full glory, 57 degrees as a high. That's much better. And full bright sunshine with an overnight low of 43 degrees. So if you're planning some activities to get out and about this week, any day but today might be your best bet, as we're looking for Mr. Sun to appear Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Saturday being the warmest with bright sunshine and 57 degrees. All right, friends, let's take a look at the high temperatures around the South Shore and the Cape today. In the South Shore of Plymouth, 46 is a high. Buzzards Bay, 47. Wareham, 48. Everybody's cloudy with brief sprinkles of showers. Crossing the bridge into the Sandwich and Bourne area, we have 49 degrees there as a high. Falmouth, 48. Barnstable and Hyannis, 48. Mashpee, 49. Dennis, 47. And Hyannis, 47. Chatham, 46. Brewster, 46. Eastham, 45. Truro, 45. And Provincetown out at Race Light at the tip of Cape Cod, a high of 46 degrees. Today, the water temperature is a little warmer, still not conducive to swimming, I wouldn't think, with a high in Cape Cod Bay of the water temperature being 41 degrees today. Wave heights minimal at 1 to 2 feet, and the wind direction there in the bay is west-southwest at 8 to 16 knots. Nantucket Sound, temperature boosting up there to 47 degrees. Still pretty cold for swimming. Wave heights only 1 to 3 feet, wind direction west at 6 to 12 knots. Moving out, friends, now to the islands out at Martha's Vineyard, where we find a high in Oak Bluffs today of 48, and the same there in Edgartown. Moving out more by ferry, of course, not swimming, to Nantucket, where we find a high today of 48 degrees at Nantucket Village, and the same at Secaucet. All right, friends, there you have it, a general overall look at the weather and throughout the week for the South Shore and the Cape and Islands. And again, the reminder, this is the funkiest day of the week at a high of 47 with a brief shower or two and mostly cloudy and dreary. But come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Mr. Sun returns, and we're going to have some nice spring Cape Cod days. All right, let's move on now to page 1 of Tuesday's, April the 7th edition of the Cape Cod Times, and look for articles of local or regional interest there. There is one article of local interest here on page 1, and it is the headline article, and it says, Harwich herring permits sell out. The Wampanoag tribe members buy permits in protest. This is by Rachel Devaney of the Cape Cod Times Network. And preliminary to the article, there is a picture. And in the picture are pictured 3 ladies. Underneath the picture, it says Atticus Pocknet of Mashpee, Sierra Oakley of Falmouth, and Jada Hendricks of Harwich hold their new herring harvesting permits that they bought from the town of Harwich on April the 4th. Pocknet and Oakley said they bought the last non-resident permits available, while Hendricks was able to buy a resident permit. Now, the article has a dateline of Harwich Port, and here it is. A line of people seeking a herring fishing license spilled out of the Natural Resource Department store onto the waterfront deck and wound its way down the handicap-accessible ramp on Saturday morning. The throngs of people were in a celebratory mood because Harwich, through the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission initiative, will open its Johnson's Flume Herring Run for the first time since 2004, when the harvest was halted amid concerns about a declining fish population. A group of Wampanoag tribal members joined the line around 11 a.m. to also buy permits. Federally recognized tribal members are not required to carry a license to fish or hunt, but Mashpee Wampanoag Tribe Secretary Talia Landry told the Times that they were purchasing permits to protest the town's decision to reopen the flume and to protect what she calls the tribe's herring relatives. A quote from Talia Landry is this: "We have seen no sound justification to reopen the herring run and allow fishing for sport and recreation that will deplete our already threatened fish counts." End quote. She is, Talia Landry, the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribal Secretary. The town sold out of the 150 permits that were available, including 3 that tribe members purchased. "We're here to say that the herring don't consent," said Landry, who was protesting alongside Native Environmental Ambassadors, a group of indigenous youth who helped to pass a tribal rights of herring law that decrees herring have a right to migrate freely, procreate abundantly, and safely make their journey back to sea. Bobby Parr of Harwich was also in line to purchase a permit. Parr's stepfather, he said, would take him to the run when he was a child. Back then, anyone could take the herring, recalled Parr, who said he plans to harvest herring 1 to 2 times at most. "I want to do like the Native Americans do and plant our small garden with the herring," said Parr. The Division of Marine Fisheries senior marine fisheries biologist Bradford Chase was happy about the turnout, but said he understands why the tribe is concerned about the harvest. "It's a good approach to be conservative this year and not take too many," said Chase. "But we would like to see some access for people who've not been able to get fish for over 20 years. So the town and the state enact a multi-year harvest plan. The Harwich Select Board voted unanimously to allow a limited recreational harvest at Johnson's Flume at the West Reservoir in the Bells Neck Conservation Area starting in April, reviving a traditional practice. Harwich is the first Cape town to implement a plan under the framework. Two other plans, one for the Nemasket River in Middleborough and Lakeville, and one for Herring Brook in Pembroke, have been approved through the same commission process, but have not yet been put into active use with permits and scheduled harvest windows. During Monday's Select Board meeting, Landry said the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe would be submitting an objection letter to the board and to the Massachusetts delegation. We see this action as another attempt to degrade our natural resources that we rely on for personal and community needs, she said at that time. We've seen no sound justification to reopen the herring run and to allow fishing for sport and recreation that will deplete our already threatened fish counts. In the year 2022, the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, which coordinates fishery management across Atlantic coastal states, approved a plan allowing towns such as Harwich to open herring runs for recreational harvesting under strict limits with oversight by the state fisheries agencies. Chase said the state reached out to the tribe to notify them of this measure in 2022, but did not hear back from them. Chase was unclear if the state recently communicated with the tribe's Natural Resources Department about the run's official opening. The tribe understands that the town has worked to gain authority for new harvest regulations pursuant to the 2022 plan. It should be noted that the Sustainable Fisheries Management Plan predates the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe's findings in its rights of herring resolution that found herring numbers to be at a critical all-time low, said Landry during the Select Board meeting. Additionally, said Landry, a memorandum of agreement was signed between the Division of Marine Fisheries and the tribe, which states that the harvesting of herring is an aboriginal right for sustenance purposes only. The state's actions in continuing to support these regulations and herring permits is not consistent with its recognition of the tribe's aboriginal fishing rights, she said. So, what are rights of nature laws? Well, in April of 2023, the Mashpee Wampanoag Tribal Council enacted an emergency resolution on the rights of herring presented by the Youth Native Environmental Ambassadors, according to earlier USA Today reporting, resulting from a critical depletion of the herring population as measured by the tribe's natural resources personnel. At that time, the tribe felt the state failed to consult with the tribe prior to implementing herring conservation and harvest measures. The statement, state and towns say a protective measure will be put in place, leads us into our next paragraph. The town, said Chase, chose a 3% harvest target, which translates to about 17,000 herring. The town could have issued 600 permits, which would have allowed for 50,000 plus fish to be harvested, said Natural Resources Department Director Stephanie Ridenauer. We can close early or implement what we need for management to make the harvest sustainable, said Ridenauer. So the town considers herring harvest a cultural celebration. During the dawn of colonization, settlers, said Chase, noticed the herring would begin to run in the spring when there was not a lot of food available. It was like a gift from the ocean, he said. Eventually, commercial herring fishing led to a dependency on the runs for coastal towns across the state, said Chase. On and off Cape, it's become a deep tradition to use these fish for food, for bait, for sustenance, and to make some money, Chase said. In the 1990s, there was an overharvest and a declining conservation ethic, and, said Chase, and commercial fishermen were taking buckets of fish. With droughts compounding the problem in 2000 and 2001, herring numbers did plummet, he said. The state then moved quickly to shut it down. But the goal was to always find a way to open once we had more numbers, he said. Ultimately, Chase wants to see more open runs become open to fishing, but he admits that smaller herring runs are not doing so well. The fish have not come roaring back, he said. And that's exactly what Landry of the Wampanoag tribe is afraid of. The herrings, she said, have not had an adequate opportunity to regain their once thriving populations. The herring are continually obstructed by the greediness of the civilization that is around them, she said. The decline is due to the behavior of people that have not known how to harvest the herring in a responsible manner. All right, friends, that concludes that article about the Harwich herring permits selling out and the protestation from members of the Wampanoag tribe. All right, let's move on. In an effort to stay first with articles of local and regional interest here for the Cape and the South Shore, we'll move now to the page 3, the Cape and Islands page. Mostly inhabited by ads. However, there is one article here of local interest, and it says Yarmouth to host the Wall That Heals exhibit. This is by Beth McDermott of the Provincetown Banner. Here's the article. The Wall That Heals, a 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., will open to the public at Parker's River Landing in Yarmouth beginning September the 16th. The exhibit will be accessible 24 hours a day until 1:45 p.m. on September the 20th, when it closes for dismantling. A closing ceremony will be held at 2 p.m. according to a community announcement. So, in essence, the display and exhibit will be open for 4 days. The wall features the names of 58,281 service members who had lost their lives during the Vietnam War. It aims to honor the more than 3 million Americans who served in the U.S. Armed Forces during that conflict, providing a space for reflection, healing, and education for veterans, their families, and others as well. Yarmouth is the only Massachusetts stop on the 2026 national tour of The Wall That Heals, making it a unique opportunity for the community. That, according to the announcement from Yarmouth officials. The exhibition will begin with a motorcycle escort procession on September 15th. On the 16th of September, the wall will be set up, and an opening ceremony is scheduled for 10 a.m. September the 17th. Other events include an Agent Orange awareness ceremony at sunset on September 18th and guided tours on September 19th. The exhibit will close at 1:45 p.m. September 20th to allow for dismantling. The exhibit is free and open to the public. Bringing the Wall That Heals to Cape Cod is a community effort, and there are several ways for residents to get involved. Volunteers are needed to assist visitors with name rubbings, staff the Mobile Education Center, direct parking, and to help with the setup and the dismantling of the wall. Volunteers can sign up for one 4-hour shift every 24 hours. Those who may be interested in volunteering can sign up at the website for the association, which is com/client/invitation2/secure. And it goes on. So that will give you a beginning to that. The In Memory program allows individuals to honor Vietnam veterans who returned home and later passed away. Profiles can be submitted for inclusion in the Yarmouth display with a submission deadline of August 17th of this year. Submissions may be made to their local website. Supporters can also contribute through local sponsorship opportunities or donations. And again, must visit the website. And basically, if you go to The Wall That Heals Yarmouth, 2026, you'll be able to access this information. So The Wall That Heals is a project of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund based in Washington, D.C. The Cape and Islands Veteran Outreach Center is collaborating with the Wall That Heals Cape and Islands 2026 Committee to bring the exhibit to Yarmouth. More details about the event and ways to get involved can be found at The Wall That Heals Yarmouth-2026.org. Okay, kind of an interesting article there about the Wall That Heals, referencing a replica of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., coming to Yarmouth in September of this year, the 16th through the 20th. Having been to the original wall in D.C. many times and thanking the Lord that I am not listed among that wall, I can tell you it's a very moving experience and one well worth the effort if you're inclined to visit the wall. And the Wall That Heals replica may do exactly the same for you. Moving on now to the next page, we're able to continue with some articles of local interest. This first being headlined by the statement, Barnstable wants to improve Lincoln Road. This is by Dave DeMille of the Wicked Local paper. Here's the article. The town of Barnstable is asking residents to help shape future safety improvements along Lincoln Road in Hyannis, that according to a community announcement. The town's Department of Public Works, working in partnership with the Planning and Development Department, is seeking feedback on safety concerns for vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists along the Lincoln Road corridor between Route 28 and West Main Street. Town officials say public input will be used to help prioritize potential roadway changes, which could include narrowing travel lanes, repairing or extending sidewalks, improving lighting, installing raised crosswalks, or adding a roundabout that, according to the community announcement. Residents can share feedback in person at a public visioning workshop or by completing an online Lincoln Road safety survey. The survey will remain open through the end of the day on April the 10th, that according to the town's announcement. So a public workshop is planned. A Lincoln Road visioning workshop is scheduled for 6 p.m. 1 week from today on April 14th at the Barnstable Adult Community Center, located at 825 Falmouth Road in Hyannis. Town officials say the workshop will provide an opportunity for residents to discuss current safety conditions and to offer ideas for improving traffic circulation along that particular corridor. According to the announcement, initial design concepts based upon community feedback will be shared publicly at a later date. So how can you participate if you're interested? Well, the Lincoln Road Safety Survey is available online at the Town of Barnstable website. Questions about the project can be directed to Peter J. Bertling, that's Bertling, a community and economic development planner with the Town of Barnstable. Okay, there you have it, friends. That's the conclusion of that article, as Barnstable wants to improve the area of Lincoln Road. This other article I mentioned that has a local reference is headlined by this statement. Gap and Banana Republic factory stores are coming to Hyannis this fall. This article is written by Denise Coffey of the Cape Cod Times Network. Here's the article. Gap and Banana Republic factory stores are coming to the Cape Cod Mall this fall in Hyannis. The retailers are scheduled to open in late September. That, according to Alina Reardon, media representative with the Simon Property Group. Aficionados of the Gap's casual denim and seasonal clothing line will have access to factory store savings without having to travel to Wentham Outlets in Boston. The nearest Gap factory stores are located there. The store will be centrally located within the Cape Cod Mall and take up approximately 7,300 square feet, close to the existing loft store. Banana Republic will take up approximately 6,000 square feet and be across the hallway between Hollister and the J. Crew stores. Shoppers will also find factory store prices in Hyannis rather than having to travel to Banana Republic factory stores in the Rentham Outlets or Somerville stores. Cape Cod Mall General Manager Jason Hewer said bringing the two stores into the mix was the company's commitment to curating the right mix of retailers that resonate with our Cape Cod community, that according to a press release from the mall. Cape Cod Mall has more than 65 tenants, Reardon said. The company is actively working on finding a tenant to replace Best Buy, which is moving to the nearby former Christmas Tree Shops Plaza. Simon is a real estate investments trust with properties across North America, Europe, and Asia. All right, there you have it. Gap and Banana Republic factory stores coming to the Cape Cod Mall in Hyannis this fall. Well, friends, as we near the halfway point of today's broadcast, let's now take a look at the obituaries that are found in today's Tuesday, the 7th of April, part of the Cape Cod Times paper, the first being that of Georgette M. Nay Campbell Buffington. This has a dateline of Marston's Mills. Here it is. Georgette M. Buffington, age 85, the loving wife of the late J. Buffington of Marston's Mills, passed away on April 3rd at home surrounded by family. She was born in Fall River as the daughter of George Campbell and Lillian Campbell and was the youngest child and only daughter of 7 children. Visiting hours will be from 10 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. with prayers at 11:45 a.m. held on Friday, the 10th of April at Chapman Funerals and Cremations at 3778 Falmouth Road in Marston's Mills, with burial following in Mosswood Cemetery in Cotuit. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. There is no other explanation or description of Georgette Buffington in this obituary, and as you can tell, it's very brief. All right, we have another obituary, so let's move to that. This obituary has a dateline of Cotuit, and it is of Karen Ann Davignon, Davignon, and here it is. Karen Davignon, 75, of Cotuit, passed away on April 1st, 2026, a day that somehow suited her perfectly because Karen never missed a chance to make the people around her smile, even now as she passed away on April Fool's Day. Karen was born and raised on Cape Cod, and the Cape shaped her in all the best ways. Warm, rooted, full of character, and impossible not to love. She was the kind of woman who made a room feel warmer the moment she entered, not because she demanded attention, but because she simply radiated it. Her kindness wasn't a gesture, it was her nature. Her humor was not a habit, it was a gift she gave freely and often. Her hands were always busy with something, and whatever came out of them carried a piece of her heart. But the greatest masterpiece of Karen's life was her family. Her husband Edgar was her partner, her person, her forever. They were childhood friends long before they were anything else, and Edgar knew from the very beginning just how lucky he was. 57 years of marriage later, that never changed. She found in community both a spiritual home and a circle of friendship that reflected everything she valued the most. She is survived by her husband, Edgar Davignon, her daughter Sarah Gould, and son-in-law Tom, and various grandchildren. The world was warmer with her in it. It will have to learn to carry that warmth forward without her, and something tells us she left enough of it behind to last. A celebration of Karen's life will be held at 1 p.m. on July 25th this summer at the Cotuit Federated Church. All right, friends, that's the obituary of Karen Ann Davignon of Cotuit, who passed away on April the 1st. All right, friends, that concludes the articles of local and regional interest for us here on the Cape and South Shore. So from now, we will move to articles of more national interest. And this first one says Artemis 2 photos show views before the lunar flyby. This is a USA Today article, and here it is. More breathtaking images released over the weekend from NASA's Artemis 2 mission showed both the moon and the Earth in all their cosmic glory as 4 astronauts headed toward our celestial neighbor, the moon. The 3 Americans and 1 Canadian have captured some incredible views, the likes of which have not been seen since NASA's era of Apollo moon missions came to an end more than 50 years ago. Among the images are the first views the astronauts had of the moon, as well as their final sights of Earth before they reached the moon's sphere of influence, where Earth's natural satellite began exerting a stronger gravitational pull on the spacecraft. The photographs also offered a glimpse into what life is like aboard the 11-foot-high, 162-foot-wide Orion capsule. It's the first crewed lunar mission since the Apollo era ended. Swooping around the moon's far side, the astronauts aboard Orion are expected to travel farther from Earth than any humans have ever evolved, surpassing the record of 248,655 miles set in 1970 during the infamous Apollo 13 mission. Despite being up in the skies, the astronauts celebrated Easter on April the 5th. NASA mission specialist Christina Koch revealed that she and her fellow crew members hid a few eggs around the cabin. They were the dehydrated scrambled egg variety, but we're all pretty happy with them, she said. During the NASA broadcasts on April 5th, the Artemis crew sent Easter well wishes to those on Earth. We were talking up here as a crew, and we wanted to send a special Easter message on this day, the Canadian Space Agency's Jeremy Hansen said. No matter your faith or religion, for me the teachings of Jesus were always a very simple truth of love, universal love. Love yourself and love your neighbor, love others. And something for us being up here and looking back at all of you through one tiny window, that just resonates 100% true, he continued. Our goal as humanity should be just to follow in that example. Koch recognized the time of year as one that many religions and many cultures hold dear. It's a time of emotions, such as joy as well as solemnness, honoring what is going on both in our world and in our various religious beliefs, she said. NASA astronaut Victor Glover expressed similar sentiments, as did Hansen. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together in, he said. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing, and that we've got to get through all of this together. The Artemis 2 crew awoke that day to a message from Apollo 16 crew member Charlie Duke. Duke and astronaut John Young landed on the moon in 1972 in a lunar module, also called Orion. I'm glad to see a different kind of Orion helping return humans to the moon as America charts the course to the lunar surface, Duke said. All right, there you have it. And I'm sure that television and other broadcast media will be exhibiting some of these fantastic pictures and sights from their journey to and around the moon. The Artemis 2 astronauts are scheduled to return to Earth, downing in the Pacific sometime this Friday. Now turning to some of the darker news, that being references to the war in Iran, This article said Iran rejects ceasefire proposal. This article is a USA Today article written by several journalists, and here's the article. Iran on April 6th, that's yesterday, rejected the latest ceasefire proposal to end the war, the country's state-run media reported, as mediators scrambled to reach an agreement ahead of President Trump's deadline to strike Iran's power plants if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. The 45-day ceasefire framework was organized and delivered by Pakistan overnight, Reuters and the Associated Press reported, citing Israeli and Mideast officials. It would involve an initial ceasefire during which talks would be held for a more lasting agreement. Iran's response consists of 10 clauses, including an end to conflicts in the region, protocol for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, the lifting of sanctions, and reconstruction, IRNA reported. Trump said Iran's proposal was significant but not good enough, as he vowed to bomb the country's energy sites on April the 7th if the Islamic Republic refuses to make a deal. They've made a proposal, and it's a significant proposal, Trump said to reporters outside the White House. It's not good enough, but it's a very significant step. Trump said the April 7th deadline he has set for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz is final. A spokesperson for Iran's military said attacks on critical infrastructure would be met with fierce retaliation. So an Iran official says the region could go dark. An advisor to Iran's supreme leader said in a statement that the region could go dark if Trump strikes Iran's power infrastructure. The rulers of various Arab countries should, in order to prevent the region from going dark, make Trump understand that the Persian Gulf is not a place for gambling, said a representative of Iran on the site X. Elsewhere, the president of the European Council, Antonio Costa, on April the 6th, urged Iran to stop striking its regional neighbors and to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Escalation will not achieve a ceasefire and peace. Only negotiations will do so, namely the ongoing efforts led by regional partners, Costa said in a statement on X. Costa also said any targeting of civilian infrastructure, namely energy facilities, is illegal and unacceptable and could be considered as war crimes. And he added that the Iranian population would be the main victim of a widening of the military campaign by Trump. So Israel says Iran Guard leaders have been killed. A barrage of airstrikes hit Iran on April the 6th, yesterday, as the United States and Israel stepped up their attacks on the country. Israel said it killed 2 high-ranking members of Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, those being Major General Mahdi Kademi, the Guard's intelligence chief, and Askar Bakari, the leader of the Quds Forces, a special operations unit. The Israeli military also said it struck the largest petrochemical complex in Iran, delivering a major financial blow to the Islamic Republic. The strike on the Asaluya facility knocked out about half of Iran's petrochemical production, according to Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz. Later in the day, Iranian state media said U.S.-Israeli forces attacked another petrochemical complex, but that there was no significant damage. Sharif University in Tehran, one of Iran's leading scientific universities, was severely damaged in an airstrike, according to state media. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, said Israel-U.S. aggressors have bombed the MIT of Iran in a post again on the site X. He added, aggressors will see our might. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guards said it targeted U.S. amphibious assault ship LHA-7. So Israeli strikes kill Christian Party official in Lebanon. An Israeli strike on an apartment east of Beirut late on April the 5th killed a local official from a Christian political party, sharpening international divides over Hezbollah as Israel strikes expand to new parts of the country. The war raging in Lebanon over the past month has deepened fractures between supporters of Hezbollah and those who blame the Iran-backed group for igniting a new conflict with Israel just 15 months after the last conflict. On April 5th, an Israeli strike hit an apartment in Ein Saden, a predominantly Christian town in the hills east of Beirut, killing a man and 2 women. Lebanon's health ministry had said this in a previous report. The mayor said the victims were 1 floor below the targeted apartment. The Lebanese Forces Party, a fiercely anti-Hezbollah Christian party, identified 2 of the dead as Pierre Mouad, a local party official, and his wife Flavia. "We are paying a heavy price for a war in which we have been dragged into by the lawless organization Hezbollah," Lebanese Forces parliamentarian Razi El-Haj told Lebanese broadcaster MTV. Israel's full-scale air and ground campaign, launched in retaliation for Hezbollah firing into Israel on March the 2nd in solidarity with Iran, has killed more than 1,460 people, that according to Lebanese authorities. So the tragedy in Iran continues. Let's move on to the next article. This next article is another reference to the moon mission Artemis, and it's entitled Moon Mission. It says astronauts break the record for the distance from Earth. This is a Reuters news agency article. 4 astronauts embarking on NASA's flyby of the moon have traveled the furthest distance from our planet, reaching the anticipated distance from Earth of 252,760 miles. This dateline of Houston is for this article, and it says the 4 astronauts of NASA's Artemis II mission flew on April 6 to the deepest point in space reached by any human, sailing along a path of lunar gravitational pull en route to a first-ever crewed flyby over the perpetually shadowed far side of the moon. The Artemis II crew, riding in their Orion capsule since launching from Florida last week, began their 6th day of spaceflight as they awoke around 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time to a recorded message from the late NASA astronaut Jim Lovell, who flew aboard the Cold Warrera Apollo 8 and Apollo 13 moon mission. "Welcome to my old neighborhood," said Lovell, who died last year at age 97. "It's a historical day, and I know how busy you'll be, but don't forget to enjoy the view. Good luck and Godspeed." The 4 Artemis astronauts set a new spaceflight record as they exceeded the maximum 248,000-mile distance from Earth reached in 1970 by Apollo 13 after a near catastrophic spacecraft malfunction cut short that mission, forcing Lovell and his 2 crewmates to use the moon's gravity to help return them safely to Earth. Glover and Christina Koch and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen were due to reach their own farthest distance from Earth, that being 252,755 miles, some 4,117 miles beyond the record held by Apollo 13 crew for 56 years. Along the way, crew members spent time assigning provisions new names to lunar features that previously lacked official designations. In a radio message to Mission Control in Houston, Hansen suggested one crater be dubbed Integrity, after the name given to the crew's Orion capsule, and that another crater, sometimes visible from Earth on the cusp between the far and near sides of the moon, be named in honor of Wiseman's, that's the commander's, late wife, Carol. A number of years ago, we started this journey, our close-knit astronaut family, and we lost a loved one, Hansen said of the mission commander's late spouse, his voice choking with emotion as he described the position of her lunar namesake. "It's a bright spot on the moon, and we would like to call that Carol." If all goes according to plan, Orion will sail next around the moon's far side, witnessing it from roughly 4,000 miles above its darkened surface as it eclipses what will appear to be a basketball-sized Earth in the distant background. Because the moon rotates at the same speed as it revolves around the Earth, its dark side always faces away from our planet, so that no human being has ever gazed directly on its surface. The milestone would mark a climactic point in the nearly 10-day Artemis II mission, the first crewed test flight of NASA's Artemis program, which is the successor to NASA's 1960s and 70s Apollo projects, and the world's first voyage to send humans in the vicinity of the moon in more than half a century. The planned multi-billion-dollar series of Artemis missions aims to return astronauts to the moon's surface by the year 2028, ahead of China, and establish a long-term U.S. presence there over the next decade, including a moon base that would serve as a proving ground for potential missions to Mars. A worker is seen inside the science Mission Operations Room at Johnston Space Center in a picture in this article in Texas, as Artemis II astronauts enter the final phase of their run-up to a lunar loop on April 6. The last time astronauts walked on the moon, a feat so far achieved by only the United States, was the final Apollo mission in 1972. The April 6 lunar flyby plunged the crew into darkness and a brief communication blackout as the moon blocks them from NASA's Deep Space Network, a global array of massive radio communications antennas the agency has been using to talk to the crew. During the 6-hour flyby, the astronauts will use professional cameras to take detailed photos of the moon through Orion's window, showing a rare and scientifically valuable vantage point of sunlight filtering around its edges. The crew will also have the chance to photograph a rare moment in which their home planet, dwarfed by their record-breaking distance in space away from Earth, will set and rise with the lunar horizon as they swing around, presenting a celestial remix of the moonrise typically seen from Earth. Dozens of lunar scientists in the Space Evaluation Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston will be taking notes as the astronauts who studied an array of lunar phenomena describe their view in real time. Okay, there you have it, another article referencing the Artemis mission to and around the moon, which I find to be extremely fascinating and just amazing in the ability of scientists and engineers to be able to attain such a feat. All right, we're moving on now, friends. All right, friends, let's at this point turn to sports. Finally, the college basketball season is over for both men and women. As you know from a previous day, the UCLA women beat South Carolina to gain the national championship title for the women. In last night's men's game, Michigan beat our local UConn team by a score of 69-63. This article says Michigan holds off UConn for the national title. Had Dateline of Indianapolis, where the game was held, and here's the article. Michigan won it all, but UConn made the Wolverines work for it in the Seesaw National Championship game last night. The Wolverines beat the Huskies 69-63 to win the program's second national title. Michigan point guard Elliot Cadeau scored 19 points and shot 8 of 9 from the foul line, and was selected the Final Four's most outstanding player. Yaxel Lundenberg of Michigan had 13 points, and Morez Johnson Jr. finished with 12 points and 12 rebounds for Michigan. These guys have done it all year long, said Michigan coach Dusty May during the post-game trophy presentation. When one side of the ball is letting us down, the other side is picking us up. Cadeau added, quote, "It just feels great being able to do this with the people I love with all these great fans," end quote. UConn, playing in the national championship game for the third time in 4 years, slowed the game to a crawl in the first half with a combination of late clock shot attempts and foul trouble. Michigan missed all 8 of its three-point attempts in the first half, but won the game at the free throw line. The Wolverines had to work to finish the job. Holding a 67-60 lead with less than a minute to play, Michigan turned it over, and Solo Ball of Connecticut banked in a three-pointer over Trey McKinney with 37 seconds left. Roddy Gale Jr., a transfer from Ohio State, playing for Michigan, missed both free throws at the other end, but Alex Caravan of Connecticut's three-point attempt barely glanced the front of the rim, and McKinney corralled the board with 13.4 ticks left on the clock. McKinney then hit both shots at the line to seal the victory. The Michigan Wolverines made 20 consecutive free throws and finished 25 of 28 from the free throw line. Caravan and teammate Braylon Mullins were both 3 of 10 from three-point range and shot a combined 9 of 31 in the game. Caravan bidding to become the first non-UCLA player to win 3 national titles, had a team-high 17 points for UConn. A tight first half featured 6 lead changes and 8 ties, but no scoring runs by either team. Michigan had become known for such runs in the tournament. The Wolverines averaged 94 points in their first 5 NCAA tournament games. When the team switched ends at halftime, UConn felt Michigan's pain, missing its first 11 three-pointers at the same goal that stymied Michigan in the first half, and shooting 4 of 18 from three-point range in the entire second half. Michigan was 1-6 all-time in the national championship game, entering Monday with its lone win coming in 1989. This is the first national title for a Big Ten Conference team since 2000, when Michigan State won the title. So both winners, UCLA and Michigan, emanate from the Big Ten Conference, which many pundits feel was the best overall conference in basketball and football in this past seasons. Well, as most of you know, the famed golf tournament, the Masters, begins this weekend, and this next article is about that. It says the new players' locker room gets rave reviews. The pictures give a look inside the new Player Services Building at Augusta National Golf Club, new for the 2026 Masters Tournament. Obviously, this has a dateline of Augusta, Georgia, where the Masters will be played. Here's the article. Players aren't surprised at the lengths Augusta National Golf Club went in order to upgrade its locker room and add amenities for the 90th Masters Tournament. It's just what tournament officials do at what is considered the best-run golf tournament in the world. I mean, it's world-class, just like what we've come to expect of Augusta National. Former British Open champion Cameron Smith of Australia said Monday, April the 6th. We wouldn't have thought it would be anything different. It's pretty spectacular, though. The locker room is great. The dining room is great. The gym is great. There are no flaws, and everyone is really happy with it. In his annual State of the Masters address before the 2025 tournament, Augusta National Golf Club and Masters Tournament Chairman Fred Ridley revealed that the old locker room would no longer be used starting this year in 2026. Instead, what would later be called the Player Services Building was to be built behind the tournament practice area and adjacent to the Caddy Shack, officially known then as the Golf Services Building. It is still there. Work on the 3-story building started as soon as the 2025 Masters ended. It now looms in the background behind the tournament practice area's driving range. It's a state-of-the-art facility designed to anticipate every need for players, their families, and support teams, Ridley said. This improvement will offer the competitors in the Masters their facilities from arrival until departure, unlike anything in sports. Ridley will no doubt address the Players Services Building again this Wednesday, that's tomorrow, at his annual news conference on the eve of the Masters. Most of the players in the field, which number 91 players, have been checking it out the past few days. In addition to the lockers, the building has a players' lounge, a physiotherapy room on the performance and recovery level, a dining room, and a terrace with seating overlooking the practice area. Players can enter the building from an underground parking area or come in the front of the building, which has a circular driveway just like the nearby clubhouse, just a bit smaller. Once they leave the building, they can either walk over to the nearby range or catch a golf cart ride to the course. It's open to families, caddies, trainers, and support team members. It is not open to the public, agents, or the media. Smith's favorite part of the locker room in the past, it was located on the first floor of the clubhouse. The locker room in the clubhouse is great, and it's got history and stuff, but it wasn't very big, Smith said. I think everyone is really pumped about the space that we've got now. The lockers are also awesome. They've got a charger in there for our TrackMans and all kinds of electronic stuff. In the past, players would split their time between the old locker room and the caddy shack where their caddies were hanging out. Kind of felt like there was a little bit of maybe disjointedness in years past with everything kind of being here and there, and then our practice facility over there, so you were constantly going between the two. Whereas now, everything is in one place, said Smith. Players who made the early scouting trips to Augusta National Course once the club opened for the 2026 season in mid-October got their first look at the new facilities. One of the first players to see it was defending champion Rory McIlroy, who visited the course in December for a promotional filming. As a champion, McIlroy has a locker in the champion's locker room on the second floor of the clubhouse. However, he will no doubt spend some of his time at the Players Services Building hanging out with his family and good friend Shane Lowry. They were mainstays in the small player dining room area of the old locker room. So there you have it, significant upgrades to the locker room for those very few people who will be able to enjoy it there at the Masters Tournament in Augusta, Georgia, with the tournament beginning this Thursday, going through Sunday. Always the premier tournament to follow in the world of professional golf. With so much in the news about the Artemis trip to and around the moon and space travel, I thought we'd end today's broadcast with a quote about the moon. What is it about the moon that fascinates us so? Well, the quote says, "Sometimes it's a wispy silver, like a fading dream. Other times it hangs so low and full in the sky at night that it seems we could touch it." And how about that George Bailey quote from the movie It's a Wonderful Life that comes to mind? That is, what is it you want, Mary? You want the moon? Just say the word, and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down for you. All right, friends, that brings us to the end of today's broadcast. This has been Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader, coming to you from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger here in Deer Crossing in Mashpee, Massachusetts. I wish you good health and good happiness as we go through this week. And until the next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and so long for now.